Hi everyone, I'm Haley and I am so excited to be sitting today at the Capitol with Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time. You have done such amazing work for your constituents, but also for people across America, including work on maternal health and maternal health equity, which is so important. We know that the United States ranks last amongst developed nations when it comes to maternal mortality rates. Those numbers are declining, especially for women of color. And this comes at a time when the administration is cutting funding for research for women's health. Why is it so important that we have women like yourself at the table helping to shape the policies that impact us when it comes to women's health? And what mechanisms do members of Congress have to fight against the administration when they're attacking things like women's health research?
Well, first of all, let me thank you, Haley, for stopping in and for extending yourself to talk about this very important issue, these very important issues. As you have stated, I have been on the front lines of women's health for my entire tenure here in the House of Representatives because I recognize that in a multicultural society, it is so very important that our healthcare infrastructure address the needs of all women with respect to a lot of the disparities that we see in women's health. I represent a very multicultural community in New York. Many women are immigrant women who aren't familiar with the healthcare landscape in the United States, but their health is in jeopardy. Their health is secondary to a lot of what they consider to be the important things in life, like raising their families, working, starting a business. And we know at the core is our health. And our healthcare infrastructure has really not kept pace with the 21st century, with the research, with clinical trials, the things that make it possible for us to advance the healthcare needs and remedies for women across this nation. When I think about maternal mortality, to be here in 2025 and know that women in my district are far more likely to die in childbirth in the 21st century, it just boggles the mind. And so I feel compelled to stand up and do what I know I can do as a member of Congress, as a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee that has jurisdiction for healthcare, to be present, to make sure that those voices that aren't historically heard in these spaces are heard, and that we direct research, we direct resource to really looking at various ways in which we can actually make sure that these women's health needs are attended to. And we've made a lot of strides in that space, particularly in the wake of passing the Affordable Care Act. So many more women have access to quality health care. What we need are all of the other elements that make it possible for women to receive top-notch health care, whether it's primary care, whether it's obstetric care, whether it's just understanding what their reproductive health means and providing those opportunities for them to access culturally competent care. And we've done a lot of good work in that space. And as you rightly stated, unfortunately, this administration, it has put a bullseye on all of that work for the sake of cutting the budget. And that is what they say, penny wise and pound foolish. Because at the end of the day, healthcare costs are far more expensive when you're in need of emergency or critical care. Yeah. If we can catch women at the very beginning of a pregnancy, provide that prenatal care that they need, monitor what is happening with their pregnancies, we know we can have better outcomes. If we have various healthcare professionals, whether they're doulas or midwives, or whether they're just your run-of-the-mill physician in any healthcare institution, they should be conscious of where these women have come from, what their lifestyles are like, and how we can best give guidance as well as healthcare remedies to what may be complications in developing their child, or dealing with healthcare scenarios that they could not have envisioned. And that's what we do. That's what I do, along with many of my colleagues, to address those issues here in Washington, D.C. We've done everything in the lifespan of women in terms of health care, from our girls getting prenatal care, understanding what a fibroid diagnosis is, to our women who are more seasoned, who are experiencing menopause. And that's like the biggest secret of them all, and all of the symptoms and indications of how to sort of calibrate life while going through that season, which is known as menopause. We're really drilling in, and I think what has made that possible are the growing numbers of women who are being elected to Congress. It would never dawn on the men, quite frankly, who have been elected, for generations now to a legislative body to see this as a worthy cause. And so I am fortunate in that I've been able to bring my personal lived experiences to the legislative work that I do, and I know that it accrues to the benefit of women across this nation.
Thank you for being at the forefront of this fight for us. For those of us who are not members of Congress, what mechanisms do we have to join you in this incredibly important fight? What can people watching be doing?
Well, right now, the fight is, quite frankly, our federal budget. It was so demoralizing to see colleagues on the other side of the aisle put a bullseye on the mechanisms that we use to fund healthcare in the United States of America. Everything from HHS, CMS, these are all acronyms for our healthcare infrastructure, NIH that does the research, you name it, Medicaid and Medicare that fund our ability to, from the cradle to the grave, receive quality health care here in the United States of America. There's a bullseye on it right now. And I would say that what we can all do is make it clear to our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And I'm a Democrat, so but Democrats stood together yesterday to say that, take your hands off Medicaid, take your hands off Medicare. These are the pillars on which quality health care across this nation has been established. From rural hospitals to federally qualified health care institutions in every community across this nation, for women who don't have access to health insurance. These programs have made it possible for us to enjoy a quality of life that our forebears weren't able to have access to. We know that cancer research is taking place right now. Women are getting diagnosed with breast cancer at much younger ages than ever before. We know that the research is being done, the clinical trials on new therapies are being discovered each and every day. But when you have a wholesale firing of the individuals who have been doing that work, who have dedicated their lives to the science of making longevity in the lives of the American people a reality, we're really going backwards in terms of our ability to optimize on all of that talent and accrue those benefits to the women of our civil society. And so we're going to continue to fight, and we want you in the fight with us. We need you to reach out to those members that voted to extend this budget proposal, to cut the budget so that our health care is now in jeopardy. It has become a bargaining chip, which it should never be. Without our health, nothing else is possible. Nothing else is possible. And so at the core of who we are, healthcare has to be a right, and not just at the discretion of individuals who want to shift funding from quality healthcare to tax cuts for individuals who can afford their healthcare. And that's what we're really facing right now. And so I want to engage all of your viewers in this battle because we determine the type of civil society that we want to live in. We determine how our resources are distributed to make sure that we have the strongest, the healthiest civil society. And that is across the spectrum, from women to men in our society. Women should not have to be afraid that they won't get the type of health care that they deserve and they need in order to be productive citizens in our society.
Calling your members, it works. You heard it here. As we're talking about fighting back, it feels really impossible to ignore some of the attacks that the administration has right now. You are chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, which is amazing, and you are chair at a time where the administration has really launched kind of disgusting attacks on diversity initiatives. What should young women be doing to engage in this fight, especially young women who look like me, who have a platform or just a voice in their community to be involved, because it really, really matters?
It matters because, I think that the cutting of diversity, equity, and inclusive programs accrues to the benefit of our overall society. It has become a dog whistle, unfortunately, for division in our civil society, and we want to bring people together. I think that it's important for young women who look like you to recognize that women have been the greatest beneficiaries, white women beneficiaries of diversity, equity, and inclusion. For so long, women in our society were marginalized. We're not given the opportunities to use their talent, skill, and expertise to advance our society, to strengthen their communities, and to support their households. And this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion sets women back so much. And so women have voices. Women are empowered. And your generation in particular have been the beneficiaries. And as a result of that, your power in this moment is required. It must be involved because at the end of the day, you will carry on. You will be that generation that makes sure that your daughters are not marginalized, that your daughters are able to go wherever their dreams, their skills, and their aspirations take them without obstruction from individuals who, for whatever reasons, I can't even attribute what their reasons are for wanting to box out such a significant portion of the society, 50%, some say 51%, of the civil society, and relegate us to, to the margins of power and influence and activity. But we have the ability to stand up. In a democracy, our voices are valid, our voices are powerful, our activation makes a big difference. And that's what I would encourage people. This is that time for us. There was a generation before us that did the job, that made it possible for all of us to, for you to hold that microphone in front of me today, for you to even make it here to Capitol Hill for this conversation, for me to make it to Capitol Hill, to be able to represent the people of the 9th District of New York and lead the Congressional Black Caucus, 62 members strong, 4 of whom are in the United States Senate, 2 of whom are elected Black women for the first time in the history of our nation, and 58 members in the House. It makes a big difference when we take up the mantle of activation, of motivation, of getting into good trouble, as my colleague John Lewis liked to say, to advance our civil society. We are blessed to have a democracy. The challenge for us in this moment is what we're willing to do to keep it.
That was so powerful. You touched upon kind of the generational shift, that it's our generation's turn to help contribute to this fight. Something I loved that I learned about you when I was researching was that you and your mom made history as being the first duo to serve in the New York City Council at the same time.
Not at the same time.
But to serve.
Right, to serve. I was a direct successor of hers. So when her terms were limited, she became term limited, I was elected to succeed her in office. And it's the first time that it's happened in the city of New York, a mother and a daughter succeeding each other.
Well, I absolutely love everything about that, and I really love the idea of sort of that generational leadership. So this is part of our Women's History Month series. So to end us off, what advice do you have to the next generation of women?
My advice to the next generation of women is that, the sky is the limit. I'm an eternal optimist at the heart of all of the darkness that we're experiencing and may have experienced in our lives. But we have come such a long way because of the contributions of women whose shoulders we stand on. It's time for us to buckle up, to use our energy to motivate one another and to get into the engagement that needs to happen in order to shape the world, shape the society that we live in. And I've seen women do this time and time again. And, it's something we inherit. Unfortunately, we're not in a place where, common cause is felt across the board. But I know that this generation is the generation that's going to make all the difference in the world. And if we don't, we risk we risk everything. We risk not being able to have the same freedoms that generations before us had. We're already in a space where the Dobbs decision has made it extremely dangerous for women who may become pregnant and may, want to make decisions about their own bodies, but are being dictated to by a group of people who believe in states' rights, but have imposed their philosophy, their thinking on everyone else. And in a society like ours, as diverse as our society is, we all have a responsibility to create spaces for people to make their own personal decisions. And this is the generation that's going to make that happen. I'm convinced of it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and inspire us, and for doing all the work that you do every day to fight for us. We're so grateful.
Thank you for having me, Haley.